Hi, it's Bill Cohen for Straight Circle Martial Arts, and this is If YouTube Martial Artists Were Honest. There's so much martial arts on YouTube, and there's so many people watching them, and most of it isn't helping you at all. You know, it's very hard to sift through all the nonsense. Don't get me wrong, there's some very good stuff also, but hopefully this will give you some tools to kind of sift through it and pick some of the better stuff. The first one that drives me nuts: 3 secret techniques that'll help you in any fight, or any of those silly things like that. Look, there are no techniques, it's nonsense. If we go like this, and he throws this punch, and I say, this is the best technique to do this, and we do this over and over and over again, and you practice this is great, and then in a real fight you go like this, and he punches me with the other hand, and then that happens. There are no techniques. In fights, you don't know what's coming. If you practice defending against this punch, it could come on this angle, this angle, this angle. It could change. You could face a lefty. You could face a guy who fights farther away. You could face a guy who's closer in. Techniques are a general concept, but they only work if you practice them on many, many angles all the time against people who don't actually tell you what they're going to throw and feed you different things. If you're just doing the same thing over and over again, it doesn't work. If I just hit him in the throat, he's going to fall down. No, it's not. It's a false sense of security, and it's a lie. Don't fall for stuff like that. The next one is that guy who makes fun of everyone else online but can't do anything himself. I hate those videos. I won't even watch them. There are so many jackasses out there who spend an entire YouTube career trying to tear everyone else down and tell them how bad they are making fun of them. And it's always some goofy kid who doesn't know what the hell he's talking about in his mother's basement. People, what they do too, which makes it horrible, is they'll take a style, whether it's good or bad, and they'll take one clip out of it, it looks funny, and try and tear them down. Look, I hate guys like that. Your job is to search for the better stuff. And you actually have to do real research to understand what it is. You also have to understand a lot of things are just drills. They're not actually fights, and of course they look a little squirrely because they're a drill, they're not a fight. But instead of taking the word of some guy in his mom's basement on a keyboard, maybe you should research the style and take a look into it and see if you think it's valid or not. Next one of those goofy kids, you always see him all the time and always says the same thing. How to do this in a street fight, how to do that in a street fight. How many street fights have they been in? How much violence have they actually been around? Odds are it's probably not much, and you always see the same thing. You know, they always have some strategy or some plan or some fake or some boxing thing they're doing, and you look at them and it's mechanically wrong, and their distance is poor. Like, what is a street fight? Do you know? I mean, in a street fight, anything could happen. Could a guy come and tackle you and start hitting you or kneeing you? Or he pulls out a knife and he starts sticking you, or maybe he wants to hang back, or maybe he doesn't want to fight at all. There's so many variations in a street fight. I know we all like to put it on there. I've done it because it gets hits, but nobody knows what's going to happen in a street fight. It's insane to think they are. And if you think you're going to learn 2 or 3 techniques that teach you how to fight in a street fight, it's not going to happen. Remember, anything could happen. I could face him and I could get punched from behind. This guy might be a grappler. He might be a puncher. He may have no idea what he's doing. He might just be really pissed and he might just come at me and start slamming on me. You don't know. So don't fall for that stuff. If this technique is going to save you or this is going to work in a street fight. The next one is these guys who always say this is the best style. It's a load of crap too. I hate that. You know how many times I've seen things like, these are the only styles that work. How do you know? I mean, really? So what happens is guys pick out somebody in a style that's really bad at their style. And then they'll mock the style and say the style is terrible because they found one guy who's really bad. How do they know? Have you ever gone to see somebody who's really good at the style? Or do you just pick up a clip off YouTube and start making fun of it because you have no idea? What you're going to find are not so much about the style, it's about the person. There are really good styles that have been spread too fast, and a lot of the people in them are really bad. And there are some bad instructors, but there's a couple guys in it who actually know the style that are exceptional. You know, coming from a karate background. You know how many guys I've seen that have done stuff like this where we sit back and we punch like this and we do things out here which are totally impractical and silly. But I've seen other guys that know how to use the style correctly, and they'll come in, they'll trap, and they'll hit. There's a lot of violence inside. You know, and the stuff they do is really good. But you wouldn't know it from the clips you see on YouTube because they always find 5 karate guys that are terrible. And I would say that's the same with everything. So when you're going, don't look at styles, look at people. I mean, when you see people of skill in any style, you know how many times I go on YouTube and I go, wow, that guy's really good. And I don't even know what style it is half the time. You just look at him and he's really good. Don't fall for that. It's clickbait. My style's better than yours because we want to feel like we're tough and we're better than everyone else. Or I'm trying to get hits. MMA's notorious for this too. MMA is the greatest style in the world according to them. Look, those guys can fight, they're tough, but you put them in a situation they're not familiar with, they struggle too. Anyone who's ever seen the MMA goes to the Marine barracks, that didn't go so well for them when it went into actual combat. They did fine when they were doing their grappling inside, but when they were outside in an element they weren't ready for, they did pretty bad. Why? Because it's not their environment. It doesn't mean MMA's bad, it just doesn't mean it's good in everything. So remember, it's not always style. The next thing is, no one's showing you an actual real fight when they're showing you martial arts on tape. They're not. I mean, we're not coming at each other with real aggression. We're not coming at each other to hurt each other that bad. And if it was a real fight, I'd be putting him down and trying to hurt him to the point where he couldn't get up. And I can't do that on film. Take joint locking, right? He grabs me, and I go like this, and I'm showing you the technique. It's not a real fight. I'm aware it's not a real fight. It's never going to be because he's not struggling, he's not fighting, and I'm not really hurting him. And he's not really hurting me. What I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to show you a lot of concepts to teach basic fundamentals of movement and motion. You got to know that's not a fight. Anyone who goes on there and says, look at that, that's not a real fight, they're right, it's not. Why would you think it is? So, ideally you start off very slow, you learn, right? You learn things that are basic, and then eventually you add more tension, and you add more pressure. And then eventually you get to the point where like he picks up, and when I'm trying to teach him to do this, I don't just grab him, I start bouncing him around. And he's got to learn how to deal with this inside of the hits, and we start wrestling a little bit, and you start toying with this stuff, and you have to do it under pressure all the time. But even then, that's not a real fight, because I'm not putting full commitment on him to hurt him. You're never going to know what a real fight is unless you're in a real fight. And if you've never been in one, it's hard to judge. So when you're seeing people, you get two things on this. You get people trying to explain to you that this is a real fight when it's not. And then you get people who are taking cracks at people showing drills saying that's not a real fight, but it's not supposed to be a real fight. So keep that in mind. There are no real fights on YouTube unless you're actually fighting, seeing two guys in the street beat the crap out of each other. That's a real fight. You want to understand real fights? Watch real fights. Don't watch martial art videos. The last one, and probably the most important one, nobody on YouTube is teaching you a martial art. It is almost impossible to learn a martial art from tape. You have to do it with people and you have to do it live. There might be 0.001% that can do it. If you can, good for you. But the most you can't. What YouTube is a supplement. If you do train, what you want to do is take pieces of everything you watch and toy with them, play with them in your training. That's all it is. So you try and find the guys that are best. It's showing you different variations of things that you do so you can always experiment and play and learn new things. If you think you're going to learn a martial art from YouTube, you're not. I wish you could. I could charge more money. I don't want to lie to you and tell you that's the truth. When you come to my channel, what I'm trying to show you are a lot of variations of things you can do, and you should practice with them. But unless you have partners, and unless you have a basic understanding, knowledge of it to start with, it's very hard to do. So go find someone who's good at what they do. Practice with them, and watch YouTube as a supplement. Don't take it as your training. It's not. Take it as a supplement that'll actually make you get better. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. It helps the channel immensely.